Good afternoon. The first item of business this afternoon is portfolio questions, and the portfolio on this occasion is education and skills. Just a reminder, members wishing to ask a supplementary question should press the request to speak buttons during the relevant question. Question number 1 is not lodged. Question 2, Carol Mochan.
To ask the Scottish Government whether it will provide an update on the action that it is taking to develop apprenticeship models for healthcare workers.
Mr Ben Macpherson.
Health and social care is of course a key growth sector and will continue to be a modern apprenticeship funding priority for 25-26, supporting opportunities for young people across Scotland. To ensure these opportunities meet the sector's evolving needs, Skills Development Scotland are reviewing the current health and social care modern apprenticeship frameworks. We have also recently launched the Operating Department Practitioners ODP Graduate Apprenticeship, enabling plurality staff to gain degree-level qualifications while ensuring safe, high-quality care. In addition, a foundation apprenticeship in social services and healthcare provides school learners with an early pathway into the sector.
Carol Mochan.
Thank the Minister for that answer. I do appreciate that. Expanding apprenticeship-type model and earn-as-you-learn routes for healthcare workers across professions creates opportunities for people who might not have had the chance to attend university. It also offers the chance to grow skills in local areas. In the past, when I've asked about the apprenticeship model for allied health professions, the Government have pointed to the development of the next generation HNC for AHP subjects, which could potentially offer those professions a recognised route in the pay-as-you-earn. Has there been progress made on this since the start of the year? And could the Government advise when they might see these routes for right across the allied health professions?
Minister.
Glad Carol Mochan has raised that point, although I did not hear the totality of her question due to the technology. What I would say is that I will take the specific request away and look at the official report and engage with health colleagues and provide a written update to Carol Mochan in writing if she's agreeable with that. And I will do that, of course, within a wider context of the fact that there is £185 million worth of investment going in to support 25,500 new modern apprenticeships in Scotland at the moment, and that the health and social care sector is part of the Sport, Health and Social Care occupational grouping, which recorded the highest share of modern apprenticeship starts in 24-25 at 26.1%, an increase of 2.8 percentage points from the previous year.
Thank you. I've got a number of supplementaries. First, Claire Hawkey.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Around 400,000 apprenticeship opportunities have been delivered for young people in Scotland since 2008. Underlying this SNP Government's commitment to the value of apprenticeships, what work is underway to ensure that these opportunities are accessible to all and not hindered by financial circumstances?
Minister.
Claire Hawkey raises really important points, and we, of course, as a government are committed to making apprenticeships inclusive and accessible to all, and that is an ongoing process, including that this year, as I mentioned earlier, we are investing £185 million to deliver 25,500 new modern apprenticeships, 5,000 foundation apprenticeships and over 1,200 graduate apprenticeships, alongside continued support for more than 38,000 apprentices already in training. And to promote inclusion, we offer enhanced funding contributions to support young people with disabilities, those with care experience and those who reside in remote rural areas. More widely free bus travel for under-22s helps young people access training and employment opportunities. Together with these measures, in terms of apprenticeships, this all helps to make sure that the apprenticeship route becomes even more viable and an inclusive route into skilled work for all.
Miles Briggs.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. Lothian MSPs have been contacted by newly qualified midwives who have expressed their concern that without gaining employment, they cannot access further experience without securing a permanent position. There's no clear pathway for midwives to complete their preceptorship before applying for permanent positions in NHS Scotland. So can I ask, has the Scottish Government considered the approach of the Welsh Government, for example, with a job guarantee scheme for newly qualified midwives to guarantee a minimum 22 hours to allow them to achieve that preceptorship before they apply for jobs?
Minister.
I'm grateful to Miles Briggs for raising these points, and in my capacity as a constituency MSP, I've engaged on some of these matters over the last few years. I would say to Miles Briggs, of course, we have a situation where we have a proactive approach to helping those to train in midwifery, and we want as many of those to be able to enhance their skills and experience as part of that, including the challenges that Miles Briggs mentioned, and also in order to, we want those people to stay in Scotland and work in midwifery in Scotland. So I think this is a matter that, with respect, also needs to engage the health ministers in the Scottish Government, so I'll take the point away and provide a detailed response to Miles Briggs.
Stephen Kerr.
And on the same subject, there are whole cohorts of qualified midwives that aren't getting jobs. And I hosted a roundtable yesterday in Parliament on maternity services, and the issue that came up time and time again was workforce planning, lack of. So my question is very simple to the Minister. Why have apprenticeship starts in key health roles actually fallen in some areas in recent years? And when will the Government finally produce a joined-up piece of work that gives a clear plan showing how apprenticeships will close those gaps?
Minister.
Well, I think, first of all, we of course want to provide equality of access to different educational opportunities, whether it's in midwifery or other roles. And the fact that we have state-funded education free for the learner helps people make sure that they seek to enter the profession or area of study that is right for them. The question of how do we make sure that, one, we are planning appropriately and retaining effectively, I think is an important wider challenge for us all to consider, and certainly something that I know that the Government is very focused on, working across portfolios, and we will have updates on skills in the period ahead, but also something for the wider Parliament to focus on in this important period, where we want to make sure that we are not only training people for our workforce of the future and making sure that they stay and can develop.
And briefly, Martin Whitfield.
Presiding Officer, we do it for teachers. Why can't we do it in health?
Through the Chair, Minister.
There's a very, in terms of the way that training is provided, of course, whether it's in different professions, there is engagement between the sectors that provide the training and the industries or services that then take on those people and develop those people. The wider workforce planning, as I said, is part of the wider skills planning that the Government is undertaking and also executing and implementing. And I look forward to giving Martin Whitfield and other members of the Parliament updates in due course.
Question 3 has been withdrawn. Question 4, Fulton McGregor.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government whether it has given it any further consideration to initiating a consultation on the establishment of a kindergarten phase for children in Scotland.
Minister Natalie Dawn-Innes.
Play-based and child-centred approaches are key to our approach to children's learning, particularly in the early years. And that's what Curriculum for Excellence already delivers. And our approach is underpinned by realising the ambition, which is the internationally recognised national practice guidance for early years. As I've discussed with Mr McGregor before, a kindergarten stage would represent a major shift in our education system. I believe that our focus at the current time should be on further embedding our play-based approaches and equally analysing their impact, but I welcome further discussion on this.
Fulton McGregor.
I thank the Minister for that answer. As she says, I know she's well aware of the campaign to introduce a kindergarten stage by Upstart Scotland, and as she's already said, she knows that I've raised this issue in here a number of times already. Upstart note that countries with well-resourced and play-based kindergarten approaches in early education see better child development outcomes, while in countries where the formal school starting age is as low as 5, like here and in England, children face growing health attainment and wellbeing challenges. Though building such a system will take time and resources, a few years of care can clearly have long-term benefits. Therefore, can I ask the Minister how the potential introduction of a kindergarten phase would align with the Scottish Government's current early learning and childcare policies?
Minister.
I really do appreciate the points that Mr McGregor makes, and I'm aware of the view that better outcomes in other countries are potentially associated with a later school starting age. Fulton McGregor will know, of course, that these countries are comparable with Scotland, but of course are independent and also have full control over all levers and resources that needed that would help us, for example, also eradicate child poverty. In the meantime, I share the view that we've heard from stakeholders that full implementation of realising the ambition at the early level would go a long way towards delivering the same benefits without the need for more fundamental systemic reform. I would also add that I think it's very important to understand the impact of our deferrals policy. So I believe that our focus currently should be understanding the impact of still fairly recent policy changes before looking to more fundamental reform. But of course, I think this is an important conversation to have and to keep open.
Supplementary, Rose McCall.
Thank you, Deputy Presiding Officer. It's now evident through studies conducted across the world that a kindergarten approach is beneficial to a child's development, and I do welcome the positive way the Minister is open to this. But the model gives children time and space to learn through exploration, relationships, safe environments. It's proven to lead to stronger language and communication, better emotional well-being, improved problem solving, and has the potential to narrow the attainment gap. It's not a soft option. It's a way to go, and it can improve academic performance in later years on a child's education. So, given that, can the Minister explain why we've got a sort of timid approach to this, and why are we not embracing it with both hands for the children in Scotland?
Minister.
I appreciate the points Ms McCall makes, but I don't think we can say that we're taking a timid approach to this. As I've said, realising the ambition is internationally recognised in terms of what it aims to achieve. At the current moment, am focused on ensuring that that is fully embedded and fully implemented in our early years, and I think that that will have huge benefits. It will have huge benefits, some of which Ms McCall has directly referred to. So, as I say, my focus at the moment is continuing to ensure this is implemented and embedded in full, but as I say, I'm very open to continuing these conversations, fully aware of the benefits and the outcomes that we're seeing in other countries.
Okay, question 5, James Dornan.
To ask the Scottish Government what assessment it has made of the impact of increasing funded early years education and childcare to 1,140 hours per year for 3- and 4-year-olds and qualifying 2-year-olds.
Mr Natalie Donennis.
As a result of the priority that the Scottish Government has placed on investing in funded ELC, families across Scotland have benefited from the provision of 1140 hours of high-quality funded ELC since 2021. Our interim evaluation, published in 2024, showed that uptake of the expanded hours is high, and there are promising signs that the expansion is delivering improvements in flexibility, accessibility and affordability. We expect to publish our overall evaluation on the outcomes of the expansion for children, parents and families over the 2018 to 2025 period in early 26.
James Dornan.
Thank the Minister for that answer. But as many of my constituencies have praised the increase of hours for their children and the impact it's had on both the parents' ability to work and the finances of the household, I'd like to ask how the Government plans to monitor the benefits of this increase in terms of child's development, closing the attainment gap and workforce sustainability across local authority areas in order for this welcome change to continue to work for the children and families of Scotland.
Minister.
There's no doubt that providing all families with 1140 hours of fully funded early learning and childcare for their 3- and 4-year-olds since 2021, and the only government in the UK to have done so, will have benefited them financially. But we also need to understand the impact it has had on the sort of measures that James Dornan outlines. We're currently evaluating the 1140 hours expansion to better understand the difference that's being made for our children and families, but also to consider those things like accessibility, flexibility, quality and take-up. And as I've said, we expect to publish the overarching report on this in early 26.
Got a number of supplementaries. Going to take Willie Rennie first.
I want to return to the issue of the difference in the paid rates for the private, voluntary and independent nurseries and the councils. Now, a recent survey by the NDNA, the member survey, found that 76% of their members found that the fees received by the councils did not cover their costs. And the same number were either breaking even or making a loss. And they said that the conditions were in a terrible state and staff were on their knees, but nobody cares. Now, the Minister knows all of this, because I've told her repeatedly for years on end.
Question.
The time for reviews is over. So when are we going to get a fair rate for doing this really important job?
Well, Mr Rennie knows that I am very switched on to this issue, and as well as Mr Rennie telling me and other members in this chamber, I go out and engage directly with providers and hear about the concerns face-to-face. So I'm very aware. Mr Rennie will be aware that the key recommendation of the rates review was to improve the cost data available to inform rate setting, and the DFLE Partnership was appointed to lead a national cost collection exercise. Those cost surveys were open for providers to complete earlier this year and reflected the input of providers and learned lessons from the previous cost collection exercises that have taken forward. Now, I'll be presented with that data soon, and I will be considering next steps.
Thank you. Martin Whitfield.
I'm very grateful, Deputy Presiding Officer. Will the review that the Minister is talking about capture an explanation why working parents are finding the funded hours inflexible?
Minister.
So, as I said in my response to James Dornan, the interim evaluation that we published in 2024 did show promising signs that the expansion is delivering improvements in flexibility. But, as I've said, the overall evaluation will be published in the new year, and of course we will need to consider our next steps to ensure that our offer is working for all families if it flags important issues such as what Mr Whitfield has raised with me.
And Stephen Kerr.
Then he's right. He has been going on for years and years about this, and quite rightly too, in relation to the private and voluntary sector providers. So the Minister has disclosed that she's about to receive data. So I think that the question the Chamber will want to hear an answer to is, what is the timeline? When is this data going to be delivered to the Minister? And then when will the Minister come here? Are we going to hear anything in this session of Parliament about this burning issue?
Minister.
Well, the final report and the data output tables from the ELC cost surveys will be shared with the sector in due course. I believe it's most important to share it with the sector first. And as I say, I will be looking at the numbers and the data that comes from that, and will be considering what steps that we will take as a government to bring more regularity to those rates, on top of the other measures that we have taken. I'm sorry, the member is shouting at me from a sedentary position when I'm trying to answer the question that he has asked. What I'm saying is I'm saying that the data will be published, and we will consider next steps on top of the measures that we've already taken to support the PVI sector.
Thank you. Before we move to the next question, I have called a number of supplementaries. We've got a bit of time in hand because of questions not being lodged. But I would be grateful if, in asking the questions, we could then listen to the answers as well. Question 6, Douglas Lumsden.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. To ask the Scottish Government how it is supporting skills development to promote the future of the North East fishing industry.
Minister Ben Macpherson.
One of the ways that we support skills development in Scotland's important fishing industry is through our Marine Fund Scotland. In the North East, examples include funding a training manager within Opportunity North East Seafoods Transformation Project and funding to North East Fishermen's Training Association to invest in training equipment for fishers to undertake Maritime and Coast Guard Agency courses. The Marine Fund Scotland has also provided over £800,000 to Seafish to provide safety training to fishers across Scotland, to the Seafish Association to provide safety training to fishers across Scotland. The recent update on our Fisheries Management Strategy Delivery Plan set out our commitment to continue to work in partnership with our fishing industry and Seafish Association, identifying and supporting the delivery of actions to support safety and career development training.
Douglas Lumsden.
Vocational qualifications are a vital route for young people to enter the fishing industry, because they will be the next generation of skippers, deckhands and engineers taking on an important way of life in the North East and other parts of Scotland. But new figures I have obtained from Skills Development Scotland have shown that no new vocational qualifications have been awarded in sea fishing since 2019. There were no North East starts at all last year. And there have been less than 5 workboat diplomas out of a total of just under 90 total maritime qualifications in the last 5 years. So can I ask the Minister, what is this SNP government really doing to guarantee the future of a totemic industry for the North East? And is he content to allow the skills pathway to decline, taking away a way of life with it?
Minister.
Just in context and answering the question, I think it's important to acknowledge that there have been a record number of vocational qualifications this year. However, I take the points that the member has raised, and I appreciate why they're of interest not just to him as a representative of the North East, but for the common good of Scotland and this important industry. So I'd be happy if the member would furnish myself and other ministers with the full details of the situation that there is in his region, then we'd be happy to look into it, because there are a lot of opportunities in his region and some challenges which I know he highlights in the Chamber regularly, and we want to make sure that both the fishing industry and also the other opportunities in the North East are maximised for our young people and those retraining as well.
Thank you. I've got a number of supplementaries. Before calling them, I would just remind the Chamber that the substantive question is in relation to skills development in relation to the fishing industry in the North East. On that basis, I call first Colin Beattie.
I welcome the commitments in this year's programme for government on improving career support and advice. How is the Scottish Government engaging with stakeholders to support every young person on the path that works best for them, including to access local industries?
Minister, if you can tie it back to the substantive question in responding to the supplementary, we'd be grateful.
In order to make sure that individuals and our young people can access local industries, including our important fishing industry, it is vital that we improve career support for all ages, and that is being taken forward as part of our reform agenda. The Scottish Careers Collaborative, for example, which I engaged with recently during Careers Week especially, brings together partners from across the system to drive forward careers improvements. And we're also engaging with employers through developing the young workforce, that network, who have connections with employers throughout their local areas, and also the regional employer network and industry bodies, some of which were mentioned earlier. And we're also engaging, of course, with educators, colleges and universities and third sector organisations and young people themselves to make sure that they're aware of the different opportunities to them.
Well done, Minister. I now call Pam Duncan-Glancy.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. And the North East fishing industry in the North East of Scotland will, of course, have to rely on apprenticeships and skills. But this government is systematically failing on that. And now the Minister has written to the committee to say that crucial decisions on this government's tertiary bill, their only proposal on skills, are not yet taken. The letter says that one option is that SDS will continue to deliver on a managed service because the due diligence to make the change the government proposed hasn't been done. So the government's woefully low ambition, which will fail many in the North East fishing industry, to simply rejig Quangos isn't even that now. It's legislating to kick the can down the road and diverting millions from opportunities in the process. So can I ask the Minister, when will he take the decision? How much longer will staff, employers, colleges and learners in the North East have to wait to find out what their future looks like? Or will he just accept the inevitable, that this government's plans are unworkable and he should go back to the drawing board?
Minister.
Well, so we had some significant discussion on the bill in question at stage 2, obviously yesterday and the week before that. And I do have to say, I find the Scottish Labour Party's approach to this whole issue really quite perplexing. On the one hand, it states that it wants to increase opportunities for young people and be constructive in that process. And then in that question there, the member quoted out of context aspects of a letter I sent in good faith to the committee to update the committee on the implementation process should the bill be the will of Parliament and pass. Now, I'm working hard across the chamber, including with the member who has put forward some constructive ideas despite the negativity in her questionnaire, unfair negativity, I should add. And I'm looking forward ahead of stage 3 to working on this bill because it is not diverting resource from skills provision now. It is about how do we readjust the skills system in Scotland to meet the needs of the next part of the 21st century, where we're going to have to be more agile and we're going to have to be more efficient and we're going to have to provide opportunities. We are providing a record number of modern apprenticeships and we know that there is unmet demand that we want to meet, and I look forward to some of those apprentices coming from the fishing industry. Thank you, Presiding Officer.
Thank you. And very briefly, Willie Rennie.
In the North East of Fife, we have significant problems with recruiting crew for the local boats. And the local school used to provide courses for young people to access the industry, but those seem to have dried up. Can I ask the Minister to look again at the provision in every community across Scotland, including the North East of Fife?
Minister.
I thank the member for raising these important points, and actually it builds on some of the discussion we had at stage 2 around niche provision that we need to make sure that we are able to meet in order to retain skills that have been important in areas including the North East of Fife and the North East of Scotland in important industries. And if the member wants to engage with me and the government more widely, directly on those points, I'd be happy to try to assist constructively, or as part of collaborative engagement with local skills providers, for example, colleges or entities that are providing training. Thank you.
Thank you. Question 7 is not lodged. Question 8, Maggie Chapman.
Thank you. To ask the Scottish Government what assessment it has made of the impact on adult English ESOL classes that are held on school premises of the reported far-right protests that have been taking place outside the schools in opposition to these.
Cabinet Secretary Jenny Goruth.
The Scottish Government recognises the important role that ESOL plays in supporting the integration of people whose first language is not English. Language is fundamental in understanding information from public services, in gaining employment and participating in community activities. It is the statutory responsibility of all local authorities to manage their school estate, but there is no place for racism, prejudice and intolerance being projected in and around Scotland's schools. Our children, our school staff, parents and everyone visiting our schools for any reason deserve to have the right to feel safe. Making anyone in a school community feel unsafe is completely unacceptable.
Maggie Chapman.
ESOL classes like those taking place in Seaton in Aberdeen are for adults, some of whom may be parents or carers of school pupils, some may be Ukrainian or Polish, some may be asylum seekers. All just want to improve their English to help them live in our communities, yet they are being targeted by far-right racists. I hope the Scottish Government agrees that it is totally unacceptable for education to be targeted and disrupted in this way. What support will the Scottish Government provide to schools and councils to counter the misinformation and far-right agitation that's fuelling these protests, to protect family learning hubs and deter racist fear-mongering? And what strategies can be put in place to defend inclusive adult education in our communities?
Cabinet Secretary.
I thank the member for her interest in this question, and I very much recognise her strength of feeling on this issue, which I share. Earlier this year, I visited Glasgow City Council's ESOL curricular network in a school in Glasgow, and I heard from staff, also from pupils, EAL pupils, about the fantastic work that's underway across the city of Glasgow, demonstrating the approach to inclusion and, of course, integration, which is so pivotal in our communities. The Government, of course, has announced funding, working with the STUC, with the United Workplaces project, backed up by £200,000 of government funding, which is supporting our trade unions to promote equality and diversity in the workplace. There is also wider work underway in relation to the Time for Inclusive Education work through the Digital Discourse Initiative, which is working with schools to empower teachers to respond to some of these challenging issues more broadly. But these issues have also been raised with me by the teaching trade unions, and we will continue to work with Education Scotland in best supporting our teaching workforce in responding to some of these challenging topics in schools.
Thank you. We have a bit of time in hand over the course of the afternoon, but I want to protect as much time for the debate as I can. I'll take a couple of supplementaries on this, but they will need to be brief, as will the response. First, Bill Kidd.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. The role of disinformation is increasingly alarming in today's age. We've seen hateful online rhetoric spread rapidly to incite division. What resources are available to schools to increase children and young people's awareness and resilience to online disinformation?
Cabinet Secretary.
So I think it's fair to say that disinformation is being used across Scotland and the United Kingdom to stoke division, as we are all aware at the current time. And as I've previously mentioned, there is no place for that discrimination or intolerance in Scotland's schools. I mentioned in response to Ms Chapman's question the work through the Time for Inclusive Education campaign, the Digital Discourse Initiative, but I was in Boroughmuir High School yesterday meeting with pupils and staff to learn more about the Mentors in Violence Prevention project, which is a peer-to-peer piece of work that the Scottish Government also supports, which helps young people in S6, for example, to work with their S1 counterparts and to tackle some of these issues on a peer-led basis. So there are some examples that the Scottish Government is supporting at the current time, but we remain open to working with Education Scotland on some of these challenging topics.
Very briefly, Mercedes Vial.
Seaton Primary School in my region has been the target of anti-migrant disruption twice in the last week alone. Successive governments have allowed the poor to get poorer while the rich get richer. But once again, it's migrants who are being blamed. Does the Minister agree that these far-right protests don't just disrupt education, they disrupt our whole communities by sowing division? And isn't it the case that the real solution to poverty, homelessness and unemployment is ending the gross inequality between us and the billionaires, not attacking our hard work?
Cabinet Secretary.
I very much agree with the sentiment of the member's question. I know she was slightly cut short there. It disrupts education, it disrupts our communities, it also intimidates our educators and our children and young people. There can be no place for it in Scotland's schools.
I would suggest that she was not cut short. Anyway, that concludes portfolio questions. There will be a brief pause before we move to the next item of business to allow front benches to change.